It's not all doom and gloom. Having the occasional alcoholic beverage is perfectly fine, and it can be included in a healthy diet and while living with diabetes. Hello everybody, Jason here at Bodyweight Masters Coaching. This is a specific video all about alcohol, diabetes, and of course meeting your body transformation goals and how to manage alcohol within your diet. Now, alcohol is also a macronutrient, and it's important to realise that it's not necessarily do you drink or do you not drink. You can certainly accommodate drinking with any social event and occasion, and it's perfectly normal as part of a healthy, balanced diet. But what certain facts you need to consider when it comes to diabetes, and how can you make sure that alcohol doesn't get in your way when trying to meet your transformation goals? So let's get straight to it. Alcohol in its purest form actually prevents from an increase in blood glucose around the bloodstream, because it actually prevents and hinders the liver from secreting glucose. So typically when you have a lot of alcohol, typically spirits and also maybe with low sugar drinks, you're at risk of a hypoglycemic attack because the blood glucose levels are too low. So it's not necessarily black and white. The first thing you need to assess when you're drinking alcohol is what's the carbohydrate content of that alcohol. You know, if you're drinking spirits but with very sugary mixes, or maybe you're drinking cider with high sugar content, or even beer, then you may need to inject a bolus in order to account for certainly the initial increase in blood glucose around the bloodstream. That being said, it depends how much drink you want to consume, because maybe later on, after consuming quite a lot of alcohol, the actual alcohol consumption will increase, and therefore you may need to taper off from the bolus because you know your body may drop in blood glucose all of a sudden. So it's about carbohydrate content and also alcohol content, because remember, the actual alcohol in its purest form can actually inhibit glucose from being circulated in the bloodstream, and therefore you can hit a hypo pretty quickly after a while, even sometimes with sugary mixes. So it's really just balancing. But if you're used to drinking one particular type of drink and you're not changing things around all the time, the body adapts pretty quickly, and you have a good understanding of how your blood glucose varies and how you're feeling. Next thing to consider about alcohol is alcoholic drinks are very, very calorie dense. Typically actually per gram of alcohol is around about 7 calories compared to maybe 4 calories of carbohydrates or proteins per gram. So a typical 5% alcoholic beer could be as much as 170 plus calories just with that one beer. The other massive thing with alcohol, of course, is once you finish consuming, if you've consumed quite a lot and maybe you're intoxicated, you're going to begin coming home and eating crap, because ultimately your thoughts on calories and food choices go right out the window once you've had a few beverages, alcoholic beverages, and then you can ruin sometimes your whole week's work with just one night of binge eating and eating the poor quality foods. And this is why sometimes it really helps just to not have it available. If you overall within your cupboards and your fridges and your freezers you've only got healthy choices, even when it comes to snacks, healthy snack choices, then you're forced to at least lower your calorie intake and get more high quality foods rather than the poor quality foods. That's if you don't go to the local takeaways or things like that. So that's a big consideration. That is the fundamental reason mainly why people put on weight and unwanted fat through drinking. It's the next day, because your body is involved then in trying to manage your alcohol within the bloodstream, and that is all it's concentrated on. And therefore, anything you eat the next day, it's going to go straight to fat. It's not going to be metabolized in the correct way. So that's what's key. And so, as they say, moderation is key. The same goes for alcohol. When you get to a certain point where your body just can't process it enough, and it's trying to get rid of the intoxication within the bloodstream. Therefore, you inhibit your body from its normal functions. And then the final issue when it comes to alcohol consumption is the effect it has on training, and more importantly, the recovery of your body after training. And there's some issues you can have with having alcohol, particularly after training, and the slowdown it can have on recovery. Because remember, that's sometimes the main element is when you're recovering, that's when you perform better, that's when your body adapts. And if you're not allowing your body to recover, then ultimately you're not going to see the improvements. So the first thing with alcohol is that it's likely to cause further dehydration. When you consider that you're probably already dehydrated from the exercise that you've carried out, it's going to cause even more dehydration, because it has a diuretic effect. It causes water loss from the body. And that might sound counterintuitive because it's a fluid that you're drinking, but because it's the consumption of alcohol causes the release of certain hormones, such as antidiuretic hormone, which signals the kidneys to lose its properties in water and fluid retention within the body. The next issue is that alcohol causes a vasodilation, which means it forces the blood to the surface of the body near the skin, and that causes even more dehydration, because you have more sweat, more likeliness of sweating and water loss from the body. The third issue is that it can actually hinder the ability for the body to create and resynthesize glycogen, which, remember, is a key source for muscle cell recovery and fuel, and therefore it's going to have potentially major issues on your performance, especially if you've done multiple training sessions. Fourth issue is that it can actually delay or reduce the rate of protein synthesis. And that's an important biochemical process for the repair of muscle cells. That could mean that your delayed soreness from muscles doesn't really go away as quickly as it should, and that prevents you from moving on in your training. So ultimately, on that last point, you're gonna slow the whole process of recovery. Obviously there are much better nutrients than alcohol to choose, such as carbohydrates, proteins, and essential fats that are going to be really important in your recovery, and alcohol will certainly slow that process. But it's not all doom and gloom. Having the occasional alcoholic beverage is perfectly fine, and it can be included in a healthy diet and while living with diabetes. But these are the kind of things and strategies you should be considering when including alcohol within your diet. The first one is try to monitor your blood glucose levels before, during and after, a bit like training, when you're consuming alcohol, so you can know the behaviour that your body is adapting every time you have some alcohol. And try to keep to the same type of alcoholic beverages. I know that's not always possible, but try to know your typical behaviour. That way you can always map out and you know what to expect. Always bring something sugary, i.e. fast releasing, when you have gone out for a night of drinking, because you should expect a particular session of hypoglycemia. Now that could be delayed. It could even be delayed into the night after you've had your drinking session. So make sure you're ready for that and you have strategies for dealing with that, so you can get a quick intake of glucose when needed. Next thing is try to make sure that you consume a healthy, balanced, nutritious meal just after exercise before you drink any alcohol. Now, obviously that depends on the time and situations, but this is really important to make sure you get the nutrients that you need for recovery and you set a bit of balance within the body. So make sure you get the essential proteins, essential fats, and the carbohydrates. And the other side of this is make sure that you drink a large amount of water before you go on to the alcohol. So again, you can have a good fluid balance just following the training. Another good strategy, and I'm sure some of you have already used it, is try to rehydrate yourself after you've done that night of drinking, just before you go to bed maybe. It will help one with a hangover, but also it will help to try to re-establish any dehydration effects that the alcohol is going to have. And then, of course, if you can, and again, this is not always possible, but try to alternate your drinks when you're out on occasion you're drinking quite a lot, try to alternate between an alcoholic drink and then water. So that way you're minimizing the effect of the intoxication over time. And of course, as mentioned before, try and remove junk food away from your cupboards and your fridges, especially when it comes to a weekend away and you know there's going to be some drinking involved, because this is really key. It's going to minimize your chances of overeating and poor quality food intake following a night out of drinking. Of course, you might need a bit of junk food to manage hypos, but ultimately you shouldn't be having poor meal choices following any drinking activity. And ultimately, it's just using a common sense approach. Be mindful that alcohol contains a lot of calories, so it can be a big contributor to obesity and, again, unwanted fat gain, and also can disturb your progress in combating diabetes and getting control of your blood glucose levels. So having the occasional drink is not going to have any issues at all, but of course getting drunk every night of the week certainly could have detrimental effects on your transformation journey and your fat loss and or your muscle building progress. Okay, that's all folks, thanks for listening. Again, if you include alcohol responsibly, you can still enjoy those social events, still manage your diabetes, or potentially reverse your diabetes, and reach the transformation goals that you need, and also maintain them. So you can certainly do all of that by still enjoying, we're humans, we enjoy sometimes alcohol. If you don't drink alcohol, then that's fine, it's not so relevant to you. As always, we're not medical professionals, so please seek out if you're going to change your diet dramatically or any of your medications. Thanks very much. Keep in touch with the information we provided. There's going to be much more nutrition videos. Soon we're going to be releasing how to create your own diet that's going to be long-standing, because that's what Body Remastered is all about. So keep in touch for that. Please like, subscribe, but I'll see you the other side.